The world began to collapse when the gate first opened. Monsters began to appear, and they slaughtered the humans in the world. Monsters continue to appear while there are only a few humans who get supernatural powers. The humans who get supernatural powers are saviors, and they are named players by everyone. The players are tasked with defeating the monsters that continue to appear in very large numbers. The monsters can finally be defeated with the power of the player that exceeds them. And now a rank F player named Manhwa appears because he is known as Great Steel as well as the last savior of mankind. But all that vanished because it turned out that what was happening now was not in accordance with his wishes. Manhwa is currently looking down, and he said that he who is the savior of mankind is now a mess. Manhwa is currently being punished, and there his class president also told Manhwa and the others to keep their heads up. It seems that now Manhwa is in a hand place that is required by the state. Manhwa there felt upset, and he asked why he who was the last savior of mankind had to experience this position. The world replied that they knew nothing about the situation that happened to the bastard Manhwa. The story also currently shows the shooting field of the state training ground. There are many weapons that can be used by players. The chairman himself now looks angry because it turns out they lost 9 boxes of bullets that disappeared somewhere. Manhwa himself is there moving his finger, and he took out a bullet from his shirt pocket. With the power he had, Manhwa immediately ate the bullets that the chairman was now looking for. While the chairman didn't know about it and could only get angry at all the members in front of him. All the members are now downcast because they don't know where the bullet went. Manhwa, who was the main perpetrator, was there staring. Because now there is a system that tells if he can manipulate 300 grams of metal. Manhwa is currently feeling upset, and he said that he couldn't be sane because he had to do players' military training for the second time. It is explained that in the previous future, Manhwa vomited blood because he experienced destruction of his body. Seen at that time, Manhwa lay limp while in front of him there was someone who stood upright. The city at that time was completely destroyed. Then there was also an explosion that occurred quite strongly. The explosion was so powerful that the people who were there were killed instantly. Manhwa, who was lying on the ground, smiled and said that it was not monsters but humans that were destroying the world. The human in front of Manhwa immediately praised Manhwa, and he said that Manhwa, who was the last savior of mankind, was quite amazing. But there he said that Manhwa was not so amazing because he was just a rank F who got the title of Great Steel Emperor. The man immediately called his comrades, and he said that they were not world destroyers but divine beings who gave judgment to mankind. Manhwa immediately said that the person's words were very baseless, and he also told him that if he was a day stronger, then he could definitely defeat him. The man smiled at Manhwa, and while belittling him, he said that now Manhwa should not feel sad or frustrated with his situation. Manhwa burst into tears because he was annoyed by the bastard's words. Then the bastard laughed and humiliated Manhwa. There he said that a rank F like Manhwa would never be able to defeat him. His partner was there preparing to kill Manhwa with a big gun, and the bastard immediately said that death was suitable for an F rank like Manhwa. Manhwa, who was about to be hit by the attack, immediately shouted loudly at the bastard, who turned out to be named Garden Pracy. And because of that, Manhwa finally died in a pretty terrible condition. But now Manhwa has regressed, so that now his life is similar to the web novels he often reads. The notification came back and told him that Manhwa was now doing metal absorption. The chairman himself there said that now he would punish them by telling them to do a move. Manhwa is currently annoyed because he did return to the past with a level that goes back to the beginning, but apparently, according to Manhwa, it is not a problem. The problem is that now he has to become a soldier who serves the country. There he said that the training he did was really demoralizing, and in the end, Manhwa had to do all the annoying training. After completion, all of Manhwa's troops are now gathered in the field there. The instructor who was there immediately said that now he ordered several squads to immediately enter and prepare to eat. Manhwa, who saw all that happened, immediately looked upset, and he did not expect because now he was back in that place. There was a lot of food left in that place. Then suddenly Hanwok's group is now not allowed to eat because they have to do something first. The Hanwok who heard that immediately replied that they had just finished practicing so they couldn't do it. The instructor who heard that smirked, and he immediately called Hanwok, who he considered a loser. Hanwok immediately gave a sharp look because now he felt annoyed at the instructor named Sangwook, who was a soldier like trash. There Sangwook immediately came towards Hanwok, and he asked if Hanwok wanted his team to do the task. With a condescending face there, he said that Hanwok's F-rank team should take on more tasks instead of complaining like that. Hanwok himself is currently being beaten by Sangwook, who is the instructor, and their Hanwok said that he once thought he couldn't pass F-rank. It seems that everyone who is there is looking down on Hanwok, who is being teased by Sangwook. Some people even underestimated him because Hanwok is just an F-rank who won't be able to level up. Hanwok felt annoyed because of that, and there he wanted to know about how loser he was in the past. When he saw Hanwok upset, Sangwook got angry and he asked why Hanwok was looking at him with those eyes now. Sangwook is there preparing to unleash his power, while Hanwok's friend who saw it was immediately surprised because he knew that it would be dangerous for Hanwok. The Sangwook over there prepared to launch his attack and said that he was ranked, while Hanwok was just a weak rank F. Hanwok immediately sighed, and while continuing to be condescending, he said that he would fight with Sangwook, but let his team eat first. Sangwook was shocked when he heard that. There he immediately looked at all the places there, because this time Hanwok said that if Sangwook did something rude, then everything would be seen by everyone there. The Hanwok there said that if Sangwook attacks, then his good reputation will be lost, and maybe Sangwook won't be able to be a person that others are proud of. Sangwook, who heard that, strangely agreed with the words of the Hanwok just now, and he finally immediately told the Hanwok to eat. Some people who are Sangwook's subordinates finally do the work they have to do. Sangwook immediately said that it was good, and he praised their behavior. Sangwook now looks at the situation, and there he said that now Hanwok and his team should eat quickly. They can do other tasks. Hanwok immediately told his partner Jummo to eat because their Hanwok himself would not eat first. Jummo, who heard that, was immediately confused by Hanwok's behavior now. And even Sangwook also stared sharply because he thought that now Hanwok looked different from usual. Hanwok immediately left quickly from that very annoying place. There he bit his lip because he was upset. And now he also went to a place where there was no one there. Hanwok, who was annoyed at Sangwook, there said that Sangwook's behavior was nothing compared to Gordon Pricey, who had betrayed and killed him. The metal absorption carried out by Hanwok is now complete. Hanwok continued to stare intently because he knew that it was a good thing for him to start with. Not only that, now Hanwok is also prepared with many spoons, and he said that now the world doesn't know if he can increase his level or rank. The soldiers themselves now look confused because now they can't see the spoons they used to eat. Jummo was also confused because the people there said that they were in trouble because the spoon disappeared somewhere. It appears that their spoons are currently being eaten by Hanwok. He swallowed the spoon into his mouth, and with annoyance, he said that the spoon tasted like steel. The metallic absorption of the spoon will now begin in Hanwok's body. Hanwok himself now looks at his knife and says that he can now only control one weapon. Hanwok is annoyed because it turns out that bullets have 1 gram of metal while spoons have 1.25, so it takes him a long time to level up. He looks at the place in front of him and says that he needs to prepare a lot of things for the future. Hanwok also stared sharply, and he said that he who was still level 1 now had to be able to defeat the monster boss. He immediately prepared with a bag, and also a knife that he might be able to use in the future. Hanwok began to control his strength, and he tried to perform the skills he once had. It seems that Hanwok is currently successfully controlling the knife, and he said that now he will show the identity of the Great Steel Emperor in the future. The story changes 3 days later at the 5th training post there. At the post, there are two people who are now on guard and watching the situation. One of the guards is Jummo, and now Jummo is watching his partner carefully. Jummo's current partner is Han-wook, who is acting strange and uncharacteristic. Jummo continues to pay attention to Han-wook, who is now watching his watch. And with a confused look there, Jumbo asked why now the Han-wook in front of him looked different lately. Han-wook instead continued to watch the time now. And while watching his notifications there, he asked if his behavior was disturbing Jummo's life. Han-wook continues to chat while watching his power level up. While Jummo, who was there, immediately said that what Han-wook did would definitely get better. Han-wook suddenly reloaded his weapon while approaching the Jummo who was there. Then with a fierce face he asked if the Jummo in front of him believed in him. The panicked Jummo immediately said that he believed in Han-wook. Meanwhile, Han-wook stares at him sharply and he asked if Jummo's words are true. In the end, Han-wook continued to reload his weapon, making Jummo immediately confused because of this. In the silent night, there was finally a goblin who had a terrible face appeared. The goblin came from a gate that was large enough so that there were a large number of goblins that appeared. It seems that some goblins have weapons and also terrible faces so that they might be able to kill ordinary humans very easily. The goblins carrying the weapons were on top of the cliff, and now they were watching the camp that was there. The people in the camp were asleep too, so they couldn't sense the existence of the goblins. The goblin immediately screamed loudly, but suddenly in front of him now there was a weapon that flew fast. The floating weapon hit the goblin right in the face. The goblin was immediately knocked back far back. Meanwhile, the goblins who saw this were immediately surprised because now there was a Han-wook who came alone into their midst. The Han-wook there attacked the goblin with his metal arranging skill. The goblins themselves now immediately helped their partner, who was hit by the Han-wook. The Han-wook there smiled happily and said that he was very happy when he could see them after waiting for 3 days. But suddenly their Han-wook was surprised by what happened. You can see that the goblin he attacked earlier is still alive and is now trying to get back up. Han-wook immediately said that in the past he never failed in ambushes, but now he was still level 1, so maybe it was natural. While doing a freestyle with his skills, Han-wook there said that this was his second life himself. The goblin who heard that immediately stared sharply because even the Han-wook also said that he didn't like doing the same thing twice. The goblin did not care quickly there. He immediately moved and prepared to attack the Han-wook in front of him. The Han-wook himself continued to attack, and he said that if the goblin took out a trash drop item, then he would beat them all. It seems that the goblin that was coming towards Han-wook was immediately cut right on the neck. The goblin's head was immediately detached while Han-wook watched him as if he was used to doing this. Han-wook's knife stuck in a tree, and that immediately made the remaining goblins groan because they wanted to attack Han-wook too. Han-wook is now ready with his weapon while the goblin who died earlier now leaves a drop item in the form of a red crystal. Han-wook immediately used his skill to take the red crystal then quickly. There he ate the crystal. The goblins who saw it were immediately confused because they didn't understand what Han-wook was doing just now. Han-wook was disgusted and he said that the taste of the crystal he had eaten was very disgusting and not as good as onigiri. The goblins immediately felt nauseous because they were disgusted with the behavior carried out by the Han-wook earlier. While the system now appears and tells if Han-wook is doing metal absorption again. Han-wook watched the system and he said that he had to eat metal to become stronger. Han-wook now smiles at the goblins and says that he will eat all the items he finds. The goblins immediately retreat to the back because they are horrified by Han-wook's behavior that is beyond reason. The Han-wook's weapon was now moving again. The Han-wook there smiled happily, and he said that now is the time for him to mukbang by eating all the things available. Whereas earlier it was seen that this Han-wook convinced Jummo to allow Han-wook to fight alone against monsters without reporting to his superiors. Han-wook at that time convinced Jummo not to report and let Han-wook move alone. It seems that even now the goblins are moving fast and they are ready to attack Han-wook in front of him. Hanwok, who saw that, immediately moved quickly, and he used his skills to slaughter the goblins who were there. The goblins themselves are currently trying to attack Hanwok with the power they have. But quickly Hanwok immediately avoided their attacks, so that the goblins were surprised when they saw this. Hanwok uses his knife skill again, and while doing a freestyle he immediately tore the goblins there with the power he had. One of the goblins who was hit by Hanwok's attack immediately screamed loudly because he felt tremendous pain. There all the goblins' legs were hit by Hanwok's attack. Hanwok continues to fight quickly while up in the tree there is someone who is watching Hanwok's behavior right now. The one watching Hanwok there is annoyed, and he grits his teeth at the current situation. It seems that Hanwok himself has now succeeded in paralyzing several goblins until they can't move at all. Hanwok stares intently and says that now the goblins who were hit by his attack are screaming loudly. One of the goblins immediately prepared to slash Hanwok's hand that was used to attack. But quickly Hanwok used his strength to grab a weapon that was there. The goblin's own attack now continues to approach the Hanwok, who is staring seriously. And when the attack was about to hit him, the weapon controlled by Hanwok appeared, so that the goblin's attack failed and could not hit him. The goblin shouted loudly while preparing to pick up the weapon that was bounced off by the Hanwok. But suddenly he was surprised because now his head was hit by a deadly slash by a tightly controlled knife. The goblin died instantly, and there the goblin immediately screamed loudly while releasing a lot of disgusting liquid. The Hanwok who did it there continued to beat the goblin, and he said if he deliberately did it so that they knew the taste. The goblin dropped another red crystal. The goblins start to get scared because Hanwok is angry from being attacked from behind. Hanwok looked annoyed. He said if he used to die from being attacked from behind, so now if a goblin attacks from behind, then he will eat him alive. The goblins who flinched in fear, there immediately groaned, and they immediately prepared with their respective weapons. Hanwok himself there immediately glanced in another direction, and he said that now he had to move on to the main course needed. Hanwok there glanced at the whole place there, and while looking for the monster boss, he asked about where the monster boss was. The monster boss himself was now seen gritting his teeth while hiding somewhere. It looks like the monster boss is a goblin shaman, where this goblin shaman is a monster that must be defeated by Hanwok. The goblin shaman there continued to pay attention to Hanwok, who was now under him. Hanwok immediately pretended to take the item dropped so he could lure the goblin shaman, who was now hiding. The goblin immediately prepares with his weapon because he thinks that now Hanwok is off guard. Hanwok himself is now preparing to take the red crystal slowly. Then suddenly the goblin shaman immediately prepared to release his strength so that he could attack Hanwok with the power he had. Hanwok, who saw that, immediately smiled horribly because it turned out that the lure he did earlier succeeded in making the goblin come out. The goblin shaman himself is now grinning at Hanwok, and he immediately threw the power he had gathered earlier. Hanwok, who felt the power of the goblin shaman, immediately smiled, and he immediately prepared to avoid the attack. The goblin shaman's attack immediately created an explosion that eliminated many goblins there, and it seemed that the attack immediately created a strong vibration. One of the guards who was there immediately gave a report to his chairman, and he said that he felt that the ground was shaking. The platoon leader who was there immediately said that he didn't care, and he asked his men not to babble about small things like that. But the ground that was shaking earlier turned out to be now making several goblins die instantly. There were a lot of goblins who died due to attacks directed by the goblin shaman, who was their monster boss. The weak goblins who survived there were scared, and they felt upset for being sacrificed by their own monster boss. While the goblin shaman continued to watch him from afar, and he thought that his attack must have made Hanwok die. He was there raising his head up because he was happy that he had succeeded in launching a deadly attack. He smiled in satisfaction, but suddenly there, someone said that he had now found the goblin shaman. The goblin shaman was immediately surprised, and she felt confused about who the person who was now coming towards her was. It seems that the one who came was Hanwok, and their Hanwok immediately issued his skills in order to kill the Goblin Shaman. The Goblin Shaman quickly avoided all the weapon movements that Hanwok had just done. Not only that, the Goblin Shaman also managed to avoid it when Hanwok tried to attack using a bigger weapon. The Hanwok there was annoyed, and he said that none of his attacks had managed to hurt the Goblin Shaman. The Goblin Man immediately laughed, and there he belittled the Hanwok who failed to attack him. The Hanwok who saw that immediately smiled, and he said that he was just doing a trick because now the original attack will appear. The Goblin Shaman was immediately surprised because now near him there will be a knife that can tear his body. An attack happened there. But unfortunately now Junwok is even surprised because he did not expect what happened at this time. It can be seen that the Hanwok's weapon was successfully held back. The Goblin Shaman there managed to withstand the Hanwok's attack with his bare hands. The Goblin Shaman immediately felt annoyed because the Hanwok kept trying to attack him continuously. The Hanwok himself grinned because of this. There he said that his old self turned out to be lame, so that his attack earlier could not finish off the Goblin Shaman. The Goblin continues to hold the weapon that was about to attack him strongly. Meanwhile, Hanwok is now shouting, and he says that he will kill the Goblin with one slash. Hanwok there said that he was actually bluffing, because it seems that there are still many goblins and these goblins are swarming Hanwok. The goblins themselves are now getting excited because now they can fight with the Goblin Shaman who is their boss. While Hanwok himself now only has about 40% mana left. So maybe he will have difficulty when fighting the Goblin Shaman as well as the goblins who hold weapons. Because there is no other choice, Hunok immediately prepares with his weapon. Meanwhile, the Goblin Shaman now raises his staff, indicating that he will fight again with Hanwok. Hanwok bluffs again, and he says that now he will destroy all the places there, including the Goblin Shaman himself. The Goblin Shaman continues to stare at Hanwok with great annoyance. But suddenly there he smiled because he saw something. There was Jummo who appeared, and there he was calling out to Hanwok who had previously left alone. Hanwok who saw Jummo coming was immediately surprised because he knew that it would definitely harm him. Jummo himself is currently still shouting, and there he calls Hanwok because he wants to know his location. The Goblin Shaman who saw it immediately shouted loudly, and with the goblin language there, he also said that all the goblins there attacked towards Jummo. The goblins immediately moved quickly according to the direction of the goblin monster boss. Seen there, they moved quickly and prepared to attack Jummo, who would have been shouting. Hanwok, who saw that, immediately gritted his teeth, and he quickly ran towards Jummo, who would now be attacked by the goblins. Jummo himself is now screaming loudly because now he is shocked when he sees a goblin suddenly appear in front of him. The goblin was holding a large weapon, and there he immediately prepared to attack Jummo, who was in front of him. But suddenly there the goblin was immediately hit by several shots, and Jummo managed to survive because of this. When the other goblin was about to attack Jummo again, a floating weapon came towards him quite quickly. But the flying weapon was immediately parried by the goblin with his strength. The goblin immediately smiled because he thought that he had succeeded in blocking the weapon that was coming towards him. Hanwok appeared in front of the goblin, and there he immediately pointed his gun into the goblin's mouth. Quickly, Hanwok immediately fired his weapon into the goblin's mouth until the goblin screamed very loudly. The goblin died immediately because of this, and Jummo was now saved by Hanwok just now. The Hanwok immediately aims his weapon at the front because he is afraid that there are still goblins who will attack again. But it seems that there are no more goblins there, but only Jummo, who is bowed in fear. The gate that had released many goblins is now quiet, and only his knife remained. Hanwok was there watching the situation that happened, and he said that he was wrong to predict what happened this time. Hanwok was annoyed, and he said that what was happening now was worse than he thought. His walkie-talkie was immediately activated and immediately told him that they had heard gunshots from somewhere. He was finally forced to tell if there was a gate there, so he took a shot. Hanwok is now watching Jummo, who is lying in fear because of the attack from the goblin just now. There he was a little annoyed. But in the end, he didn't do anything because Jummo was his partner. The troops who were there immediately said that now everyone should guard their posts. While Hanwok, who heard that, was immediately surprised because he knew that now there would be someone who would soon get there. He was told that there would now be a paladin coming there, and that paladin had enormous power. Hanwok knew that the one who came later was Seo Yunha, who was a great paladin who had great power. When Seo Unha comes, it is certain that they must have been stopped and Seo Unha won the fight. Not only that, all drop items will definitely be backed by the military, including adamantium, which is one of the legendary items that Hanwok is currently eyeing. Hanwok there said that adamantium is an item that allows him to become a steel emperor and gain extraordinary strength, so if he fails to get it now then, he needs 4 more years to become stronger. Hanwok is also there remembering that if that happens then he will most likely experience bad things again in the future. Now that things are chaotic there, Hanwok says that he will go and defeat the monster boss alone. Hanwok there said that the goblin who attacked him earlier must need a human as a sacrifice. Jummo himself is confused and he doesn't understand what's going on at the moment. Hanwok doesn't care about that, and he remains focused on the possibility of where the goblins will go. There he watched the surroundings and thought about where the goblins were going now. Suddenly, Hanwok's walkie-talkie was activated, and their post 6 immediately informed that now in their place there were goblins attacking. The Hanwok there looked at the light that was there, and he thought that it must be where the goblins were now. He immediately grinned when he saw this. Quickly their Hanwok said that he who was in post 5 will now come to post 6 to come hell. Post 6 immediately told him that Hanwok was just a rank F, so he told Hanwok to stay in place. Hanwok immediately turned off the walkie-talkie. Then Jummo over there said that Hanwok shouldn't go against orders because then they could both be sanctioned by the chairman. Hanwok there said that in post 6 there were only archers and mages, so if he didn't help him then they could die. Jummo, who heard that, also belittled Hanwok, and he said if Hanwok, who is rank F, can help them. Hanwok stares at him, and there he points at Jummo, indicating that Jummo is the one who will help. Jummo, who heard that, immediately fell silent because there he was confused by what Hanwok just said. Post 6 was there to immediately inform the center that now one of them was in a very dangerous position. The center also immediately informed that now they had sent a relief unit, so they asked the post to guard with all their body and soul. The goblins themselves now look happy because now they can attack something according to their wishes. Seen at this time, the goblins are having a feast while destroying the post in which there are humans. The person in the post looks like he has started dying, and his partner can only panic seeing the current situation. His colleague who was dying there said that the barrier that protected them would soon be destroyed by the goblins. When they were talking, suddenly his partner was confused because now the sound outside was quiet and the goblins did not attack them anymore. It turns out that the reason the goblins left was because now the place will be attacked by the magic power of the goblin shaman. The goblin shaman did the magic he had, and his goal was to destroy post 6. Post 6 is now immediately showered by many stones that can destroy the place. Inside the post, they were immediately surprised because now they felt that the situation was getting worse. They immediately said that the one who had attacked must be a monster boss because it caused quite extraordinary effects. The goblins themselves now look happy because their goal is to capture humans and bring them to the altar to be offered. One of the people in the place immediately pointed the AK-47 towards his mouth, and he said that dying alone would not be too painful. When he saw that, his colleague immediately burst into tears because he did not expect that the person had given up with the current situation. The stones that were there now began to fly again and prepared to hit them. The goblin shaman immediately smiled, and now he was preparing to do the same thing again for the second time. Suddenly, the crying man's walkie-talkie lit up and told him to aim the arrow at the light that would appear. The man was immediately surprised because even the person who called him told him to add the fire attribute to the arrow later. He eventually complied, even though he thought that it would take several people for his attack to succeed. In front of the man himself, there were now only rocks. With the flaming arrows there, he was confused about what to do because there was nothing there now. but among the rocks there was suddenly a bright light. It seems that the person who gave off the light was Hyunwook, and he told the archer to aim properly. Hyunwook was there staring intently, and he said that the one who would control the trigger of the weapon was himself. Hyunwook immediately moved his hand so that the archer's weapon moved on its own. The archer was shocked when he saw it because he didn't expect the trigger he was holding to move by itself. It was seen that the fire arrow immediately shot quickly through the rocks that were now there. In the end, the arrow directly hit the goblin that was held by the Hyunwook, while the Hyunwook there immediately moved up. The goblin who was hit by the fire arrow was immediately in pain, but with his painful face, he immediately tried to pull out the fire arrow. Unfortunately, the fire arrow immediately exploded so that the goblin died in front of the Hyunwook, who was watching him. Notifications began to appear and tell if Hyunwook lost his 1% mana. Hyunwook was there immediately smiling happily. He said that the archer had great destructive power so he could save more mana. The goblins themselves are now immediately shocked when they see a fire raging somewhere. Jummo, who was there, was also surprised, including the archer, who is now confused because it turns out that his attack managed to kill one goblin easily. The goblin shaman who saw it immediately gritted his teeth because there he felt annoyed by what the Hyunwook did. He quickly moved the stones that had floated with his skill towards Hyunwook, and there the stones did not hit post 6, which is now about to collapse. Hyunwook, who saw the stones floating, jumped because he had to avoid the stones. In the end, the stones are now gone and post 6 might be safe for a while. The person at post 6 was now immediately gaping when Hyunwook told him to reload the arrow like before again. He quickly did so, and after he reloaded his weapon, then he would immediately aim according to Hyunwook's directions. The goblin shaman, who was in a distant place, continued to watch the current situation. There the goblins were seen dying one by one, because they were hit by fire arrows controlled by the Hyunwook. The goblin shaman immediately gritted his teeth because now he was annoyed by the behavior of Hyunwook, who continued to attack his men. Jummo himself now looks confused because it turns out that he is currently told to find the location of the goblin shaman, who is the boss monster. In front of Jummo, there are now many dead goblins with bodies burned by fire thanks to the power of Hyunwook and also the archer. Jummo was surprised, and he said that now this Hyunwook looks like a person who is cleaning the gate alone. While Jummo was lurking, there was suddenly a goblin who saw him and was quite surprised. The goblin immediately shouted loudly, and there he was immediately preparing to attack towards Jummo, who was in front of him. Jummo, who saw that, could only gape, and he said if he wanted to be saved. Hyunwook's weapon came and immediately attacked the goblin, who was about to slash Jummo. The Hyunwook there moves while emitting light. While approaching the goblin, their Hyunwook continued to emit light, so that later the archer could aim the weapon in that direction. Hyunwook again immediately moves his finger to indicate he will pull the trigger, which is now being held by the archer. A fire arrow will now hit the goblin so that the goblin immediately stares with a face full of fear. In the end, the goblin's face was immediately hit by a strong explosion so that he died instantly. The Hyunwook there immediately pointed at Jummo, and he told him that Jummo's weapon had to be aimed according to the position so that it was easy to use. Jummo, who heard that, immediately obeyed his orders, and there he immediately prepared his weapon towards the front so he could attack. The goblins themselves now look dead because the Hyunwook has been moving fast while killing them one by one. The goblin shaman, who saw this, immediately noticed the current situation, and there he immediately glared forward because he was annoyed with the behavior that Hyunwook did to his men. Hyunwook himself is now staring directly, and he said that now the goblin shaman will definitely come out because he has seen his ability. Hyunwook's visible mana is now left. Hyunwook immediately felt annoyed, and he thought that now the goblin shaman must come out before his strength runs out. When Hyunwook was moving to find the goblin shaman, suddenly he was surprised because now there was a Jummo calling him. Jummo is seen there being captured by the goblin shaman, and Jummo immediately says that he is now asking for help from Hyunwook. Jummo is currently seen being held hostage by the goblin shaman, and there Jummo immediately said that he was sorry, even though he had previously followed all of Hanwok's orders. Hanwok himself is now ready with a knife that can be controlled with his abilities. Meanwhile, the goblin stares, and there he also makes Jummo's neck bleed with the weapon he is holding. The goblin shaman stares intently, and he immediately says something in his goblin language. Hanwok immediately gritted his teeth because he was annoyed. And there Hanwok immediately did not use his strength anymore because maybe the goblin told him to give up. Hanwok there said that the current situation could happen because Jummo had obeyed his orders. Seen there immediately, there are two goblins who are now preparing to slash Hanwok with the big swords they have. But Hanwok smiled happily and said that now is the end for the goblin shaman, who is the boss monster. The Hanwok there moved his finger, and that immediately made someone's plaque move. The attack from the plaque was directly aimed at the goblin shaman, who was the boss of the goblin monsters. The goblin shaman immediately released a lot of green liquid, indicating that he was now losing a lot of blood due to the deadly attack just now. Hanwok now immediately dodges quickly, and the goblins who will attack him cannot hit him. The goblin is now dying while Jummo, who was Sandra, was immediately dropped by the goblin shaman. Jummo was now immediately preparing to throw a knife because Hanwok had previously called for it. Hanwok there immediately smiled happily, and he said that now was the time for him to devour the goblin. The goblin himself now runs away, but even though he runs away there, Hanwok uses his strength so that the goblin can be chased. When Hanwok attacks the goblin's back, Hanwok's knife goes mental, because there the goblin uses armor on his back. Hanwok's ohm system now keeps appearing and telling him that Hanwok's mana is only 9% more. The annoyed Hanwok there continued to chase the goblin, and he said why the goblin had to protect his back. It seems that the goblin is now running fast towards the gate that allowed him to enter the human world. The goblin shaman continues to run fast because he knows that if he is there, then he will definitely die by Hanwok's power. Hanwok, who saw the goblin shaman running towards the gate, was immediately surprised because he did not expect that the goblin would run there. He shouted loudly, and there he said if the goblin escaped into the gate, then all of his efforts just now would be in vain. Hanwok takes out his hand towards the goblin who is about to run away. The goblin himself is now seen running fast while preparing to enter the gate that is close to him. The goblin's necklace itself now makes a metallic sound. The Hanwok who saw it immediately looked sharp, while the system continues to tell him that he has only a few minutes left. Hanwok's arm there moved quickly, and he immediately grabbed it because he wanted to do something. It seems that what Hanwok did was to make the goblin's metal necklace move so that the goblin couldn't get away from there. Hanwok immediately clenched his fist, and he was also now preparing to finish off the goblin that had escaped from his presence. Hanwok's mana is only 3% left. While now Hanwok must use his strength so that the goblin can be pulled due to the metal attached to his neck. Hanwok's mana is only 2%. And now he is also immediately ready to use his knife to finish off the goblin shaman. When Hanwok's mana was 1% left, Hanwok begged the goblin to be quiet. The goblin is now even scared because he knows that this time will be the end for his life, who has become a goblin shaman. Hanwok finally managed to launch a deadly attack on the goblin shaman in front of him. And it seems that at this time the Hanwok's mana is exhausted. Hanwok there felt exhausted, and he said that in the future he needed physical exercise in order to increase his body strength. When Hanwok was exhausted, suddenly there was a bright light that exploded like fireworks. It seems that the one who did that was the paladin, who had now arrived along with a large number of troops. The female paladin is very beautiful and looks very strong. Hanwok himself is now immediately looking for adamantium, which will be the drop item from the goblin shaman. When he found it, Hanwok immediately felt disgusted because the item he got from inside the monster's body. It looks like the adamantium is now still filled with green liquid. But Hanwok, who had been found by the soldiers, was forced to immediately put the adamantium in his mouth. Hanwok swallowed the adamantium. She finally concluded that the goblins were killed by one person and not by 4 low-level soldiers. Han-wook himself has now successfully consumed a legendary item that is difficult to obtain. Han-wook immediately smiled happily because he knew that it would be very good for him in the future. The system seems to tell him that the medal that Han-wook got now can increase his strength. The paladin who had seen Han-wook laughing was immediately surprised because she was confused as to why Han-wook was laughing when the situation was very tense now. But even so, the paladin could not focus on Han-wook because now there are still goblins that he must finish. Han-wook himself now looks happy with his situation. It seems that at this time he got a rare ability. So now he can feel the resonance of all the metals around him. Han-wook smiles proudly, and he tells if now the Great Steel Emperor will return to the world. A few days later, after the G opened, rumors about F-rank fighting goblins began to spread. The female soldiers there often gossiped, and they told if the incident was very extraordinary. There the red-haired woman said that when the gate appeared, everyone could only be silent in fear, but the rank F immediately appeared and slaughtered all the goblins. His partner couldn't believe it, and he said that it could only happen in the comic world. Sang-wook himself is now hearing stories about Han-wook slaughtering monsters, but he doesn't believe it. It seems that the one who told Sang-wook was the person from Post 6, and he explained it to Sang-wook and his partner. The Wonsuk immediately came to him, and he said that now the man must respect again. The fat man there scared the person from Post 6, where this person was an archer who had the power of fire. Sang-wook immediately told the two of them not to joke in front of him. It seems that the Wonsuk introduced himself where he was a barbarian who had the power to tear goblins with his strength. Sang-wook himself is now staring, and he says that if rank F is famous for defeating monster bosses, then they should be taught a lesson. The big man immediately grinned, and he said that now they should take care of it. The story changes to the battalion's main building there. It appears that Han-wook is currently saluting the main commander. Han-wook is currently feeling a little panicked because he is afraid that he will be punished for violating the order to stay on guard. It seems that there is also the paladin, and now Seo Yunha, who is the paladin, continues to pay attention to the current situation. Not only that, there is also a mage who has the ability to warp. Then most importantly at this time there is Kang Seok, who is the lieutenant major of the place, and now he asks if it is true that Han-wook has gone against orders by going to save Post 6. Han-wook tried to calm down because he thought that if he spoke wrongly, then he could be subjected to court-martial for disobeying orders. Han-wook himself immediately replied that it was true, and he said that he took advantage of the situation in order to win against the monsters. Kang Seok immediately said that it didn't make sense because Han-wook, who was rank F, should have been torn apart. Han-wook, who heard that, immediately replied that he was an enterprising soldier. So he could win against the monsters because he did everything according to what he learned. Han-wook there remembered that Kang Seok had once fought against a very strong orc. But unfortunately, Kang Seok lost and almost died because of that. But without hesitation, Kang Seok became a military man again, and he became the one who initiated the current training ground. Han-wook smiled broadly and said that Kang Seok was a soldier to the bone, so he would definitely support the soldier's actions as he said. Suddenly, Kang Seok grabbed Han-wook's arm. With his big shoulders there, he said, "Are Han-wook's words true?" Han-wook, who heard that, immediately smiled frantically, and he said if it was true. With his proud, scary face, there Kang Seok immediately said that now Han-wook was promoted, and he became a non-commissioned officer in that place. Not only that, now the system also tells if Han-wook has successfully absorbed adamantium and gained strength. Han-wook, who got 2 promotions directly, did not say anything, and he could only stand still because of this. Seo Yunha and her colleagues were immediately surprised because they did not expect Kang Seok's words just now. Kang Seok himself is now shedding tears because he feels proud of Han-wook's behavior, while Han-wook is now breaking out in cold sweat because he didn't expect Kang Seok's strange reaction. After the absurd situation occurred, the story now changes to the training ground for military members. Seen at the training ground now, there is Han-wook, who is exercising by lifting a large barbell. When he finished there, he calmed down a bit because now he's not in jail after defying orders. Han-wook himself is currently being watched by Sang-wook and Won-suk. Sang-wook smiles at Won-suk, and there they prepare to find trouble with Han-wook. While relieving his fatigue there, Han-wook was also reminded of the previous situation. In the previous situation, he remembered that Lemony said that F ranks like Han-wook couldn't become non-commissioned officers. He was now staring intently, and he said that he didn't want to stand out, so he didn't want to be a non-commissioned officer or an army leader. But suddenly there the Won-suk came, and he immediately asked about whether Han-wook had now finished training. Han-wook immediately replied that he hadn't finished yet. Then there the Won-suk smiled horribly as if he wanted to eat the Han-wook in front of him. Han-wook, who saw that, was a little disturbed, and he asked what this Won-suk was really doing. In his loud voice, the Won-suk said that Han-wook was embarrassed because he was training with weights that could be lifted easily. Everyone who was there was immediately surprised, and they immediately noticed Han-wook, who was teased by Won-suk. They laughed at Han-wook while Han-wook could only watch from afar. It seems that one of the people who laughed at him was Sang-wook, and he did it together with his friends. Han-wook immediately remembered that the current situation must be the work of Sang-wook, who is an annoying trash soldier. While holding his head, Han-wook said that if he doesn't teach him a lesson, then this Sang-wook will definitely always bother him in the future. Han-wook immediately said something to Won-suk. While watching Won-suk with annoyance there, he said to him, "Let's fight and finish everything." When Won-suk heard that, and Sang-wook were immediately surprised because they didn't expect Hyunbo's words just now. After everything was done, it was already night. And at night, there will now be a battle between Han-wook, who is rank F, against Won-suk, the star of the squad. Han-wook immediately put on his gloves, and he prepared to slaughter Won-suk in front of him. Won-suk himself relaxed because he knew that he could easily defeat Han-wook. While sticking out his tongue there, he said that Han-wook, who is his favorite, now he will teach a lesson. Won-suk there immediately moved quickly, and he immediately prepared to launch a powerful attack on Han-wook. Han-wook himself is now prepared with his defensive position, and he is ready to fight against Won-suk, who will attack him. Han-wook there immediately dodged when a strong attack from Bao came at him. There Han-wook used his footsteps, and like a professional boxer there, he continued to avoid all the attacks made by Won-suk, who had a large body. Han-wook continued to dodge all of Won-suk's attacks with ease. But in the end, Han-wook was dragged backwards so that now Han-wook had no room to dodge Won-suk. Won-suk shouted loudly, and there he immediately launched a punch that would definitely hurt if hit. Han-wook, who saw that, was immediately shocked because he knew that Won-suk's attack must be very strong. The people who were there now looked scared because they thought that Han-wook would die. But it turned out that this Han-wook managed to dodge, and there he also immediately did a roll to get away from Won-suk. Han-wook is now directly behind Won-suk, so Won-suk was immediately surprised when he saw this. Han-wook himself was taunting Won-suk, and he did it with a flat face without any expression. Won-suk was immediately annoyed, and he immediately gritted his teeth because he saw Han-wook's arrogant behavior. Won-suk is seen immediately warming up again because now he wants to rush to hit Han-wook's face. While in the audience, there is currently a non-commissioned officer named Chun-mam who is watching him. Chun-mam continues to pay attention to the fight now because there he wants to recruit someone who can later be invited in his division. There he continued to pay attention to the fight between Won-suk and Han-wook that was taking place. And while looking confused there, he said that Won-suk's strong punch was useless because his punch couldn't hit Han-wook at all. Chun-mam's men immediately said that maybe it happened because Won-suk lacked experience, but still Won-suk was great. Sang-wook himself now looks upset because he feels that the current situation should not pass too long. With a loud voice there, Sang-wook said that Won-suk should not give in to his enemy, and he told Won-suk to fight seriously. Some of the people there were also angry, and they told Won-suk to be serious because most of them had bet on Won-suk's victory. Won-suk himself was upset, and he said that his body was now so heavy that he was having trouble moving. Even though his body was heavy, their Wonsuk still tried to attack with all of his might. Then it appears that the reason his body is heavy is because the iron in his shoes is controlled by Hanwok. Hanwok moved his hand, and it was seen that it immediately made Wonsuk's shoes move down. Wonsuk is there having trouble moving, and he is confused about why his body is like that now. When Wonsuk tried to attack Hanwok, again dodged easily. Wonsuk started to get scared, and he was confused about what Hanwok was doing. When Wonsuk tried to attack, his body seemed to move away from Hanwok. Hanwok himself immediately smiled happily, and he said that Wonsuk now must feel like he was fighting in a swamp. Suddenly, Wonsuk raised his hand and said that now his legs felt strange, so the fight had to be stopped. Hanwok, who heard that, immediately smiled happily, and he said that it seemed like Wonsuk was going to run away because he was afraid of losing to him. When he heard that, Wonsuk was even more annoyed, and he said that Hanwok, who is a rank F bastard, is really annoying. Wonsuk immediately released his power so that he created a great aura around him. Shunmyeon and his men were immediately surprised because they knew that now Wonsuk was releasing quite great power. It was seen that Wonsuk's body became muscular because now he entered berserker mode to increase his body strength. Wonsuk, who has changed immediately, gritted his teeth like a Red Bull, and now he is preparing to hit Hanwok. Hanwok himself is now staring intently, and he is preparing to have a serious fight in order to win against Wonsuk. Shunmyeon, who saw that, was immediately surprised there. He was confused why Hanwok was not scared, even though now he would fight a very strong big bull. Shunmyeon explained that the current state of Wonsuk was not much different from a raging bull, while Hanwok himself now looks like a tiger who is hiding his fangs in order to defeat the bull. The Wonsuk there immediately prepared so that now he could attack Hanwok properly. Shunmyeon, who saw that, immediately smiled, and he said that the current situation was really interesting. With his big body, their Wonsuk said that now he would finish off the Hanwok in front of him. It seems that at this time Wonsuk disappeared because he was going to attack Hanwok, and their Wonsuk finally managed to attack Hanwok, who was now in front of him. It looks like Hanwok was immediately pushed far enough because Wonsuk's attack was so terrible. Sangwook, who saw that, was immediately happy, and he said that Wonsuk was indeed suitable for the S title in his current class. Wonsuk is now staring intently, but even so now his hands are shaking from pain. He was a little confused by this, and he said that it felt like he had hit thick steel with his bare hands. Hanwok himself is currently successfully resisting Wonsuk's attack, because it turns out he used his skill that makes his physique like steel. Hanwok there smiled happily, and he said that his physical steel skill could turn his body into steel. Because it was okay there, Hanwok immediately teased Wonsuk again, and he said for Wonsuk to come forward to attack again. Wonsuk was getting annoyed, and he said that Hanwok, who is an F rank, is really annoying trash. Wonsuk immediately launched a deadly attack at the Hanwok in front of him. Hanwok there immediately dodged, and while staring sharply now he was preparing to counterattack. Hanwok was seen there gathering strength in his legs. Then he quickly kicked Wonsuk's back leg. Hanwok was there preparing to attack again, and he said that the fight against Wonsuk, who only relied on muscles, was useless. While punching Wonsuk's face, there Hanwok said that Wonsuk must be hit so that he can think clearly. Wonsuk immediately fell down and is currently being beaten continuously by Hanwok. Sangwook, who saw that, was shocked, and he didn't expect what was in front of him right now. Shunmyeon, who saw that, smiled and said that now the tiger has shown his fangs. Shunmyeon saw that Hanwok was now beating Wonsuk to a pulp. Shunmyeon immediately thought that the current situation was like a tiger biting a black bull. However, it seems that Hanwok is surprised because it turns out that his body is actually lifted up by the very strong Wonsuk. Hanwok couldn't put his foot down because Wonsuk was now using his strength to stop Hanwok. Wonsuk, who was already battered there, was annoyed, and he said that this Hanwok must have used a trick to get himself hurt. Hanwok himself now looks upset because he knows that the current situation might be dangerous because Wonsuk can do anything to him. Wonsuk immediately lifted Hanwok up, and while preparing for the slam, he said that now Hanwok should go to hell. Hanwok, who was about to be slammed, immediately gritted his teeth because he knew that if he was successfully slammed, then everything would be dangerous. But when he was about to be slammed there, Hanwok moved quickly and he did a spin on Wonsuk's body. Wonsuk was immediately surprised because even now Hanwok's legs were moving like they were going to wrap around his body. In the end, Hanwok managed to stop Wonsuk's body from slamming him to the ground. Hanwok there did flying amber so that now Wonsuk's hands are very difficult to move. Wonsuk over there immediately felt annoyed because now Yuno was locking the movement of his hands. Chunmyeon, who saw that, immediately thought that Bobo was pretty great because he could withstand the lock that was being done by Hanwok. Hanwok himself is currently continuing to increase his strength because he wants to make Wonsuk's arm break and can no longer be moved. Chunmyeon immediately said that it might be useless because Wonsuk has a body hardening skill, so what Hanwok is doing won't work. Wonsuk was now shouting, and he said that the Hanwok who was trying to attack him was overexerting himself and would probably die. While preparing to launch a fist there, Wonsuk said that the attack that Hanwok is doing now will not be able to hurt him. Hanwok didn't give up, and with his small body there, he immediately locked on to Wonsuk's big little finger. Wonsuk was shocked when he saw this, and he didn't understand why Hanwok had just let go of his little finger. But it turned out that Hanwok did it so that he could dodge and he could escape from the grip of Wonsuk's huge hands. Hanwok was there finally able to escape from Wonsuk's grip, and he managed to avoid the strong attack from Wonsuk just now. Not only that, Hanwok also moved quickly, and he immediately climbed on Wonsuk's body, who was trying to attack. Hanwok immediately locked on Wonsuk's head, and it looks like he was secretly doing this so that it made the Wonsuk surprised and confused by what was happening now. Chunmyeon, who saw that, immediately smiled happily, and he said that the neck lock performed by Hanwok was very good. The Wonsuk himself was now annoyed, and he said that the lock that was now done by Hanwok could be released very easily. Hanwok, who heard that, smiled because he knew that he was now using physical steel so that his body parts become very strong. It seems that Hanwok's physical steel is now used on his hands so that even Wonsuk, who has great strength, cannot release the strangulation. Suddenly, there a notification appears and tells if the use of physical steel has exceeded the standard range. Hanwok began to panic because of this, while Wonsuk there continued to try hard so that he could escape from the death strangulation carried out by Hanwok. Hanwok continues to get warnings because now his strength is used beyond the limit so that it damages his body. Sangwook, who saw that, was immediately surprised, while his subordinates there said that Sangwook should stop fighting because it could be a big danger. Hanwok himself at this time immediately stared at Sangwook in front of him, and he said that what he was doing now was to warn him. While continuing to strangle the Wonsuk there, Hanwok said that if Sangwook bothered him again, maybe later he would teach a more terrible lesson. Sangwook, who felt Hanwok's intimidating aura, immediately broke out in a cold sweat because he didn't think that Hanwok could give off such a strong aura. The Wonsuk himself now still did not give up there. He said that he could not be defeated by a lowly player like Hanwok. Wonsuk was there watching the current situation, and he said that he didn't want to lose while being watched by many people. Wonsuk increased his strength, and he said that he was the next generation ace, so he couldn't lose at this point. Hanwok, who saw Wonsuk's power increase, was immediately surprised because he knew that now the situation would become more difficult. Wonsuk's right hand got bigger, as well as his left hand, which now emitted unexpected power. There Wonsuk went berserk, and it instantly made him bigger and destroyed the ceiling. Wonsuk now increased his power again, and it made him 3 times stronger. Chunmyeon was immediately happy about it. There he said that now he wanted to see who would be the predator. Wonsuk, who has unleashed his full power, is now still having trouble moving, and he can only endure the pain of Hanwok's lockdown at the moment. Hanwok himself is now shouting loudly, and he hopes that this guy will go to hell soon thanks to his power. Wonsuk immediately screamed loudly because he was having trouble breathing due to Hanwok's strangulation. In the end, their Wonsuk fell, so that when Wonsuk fell, it immediately created a fairly strong effect. Everyone who was there was immediately shocked, and they wanted to know what exactly happened at this moment. Chun Maung himself now smiled happily and said that what he had thought was true. While watching the Hanwok there, Chun Maung thought that this Hanwok was a ferocious predator that could prey on his enemies. The Wonsuk himself is now lying down, and his body is now being stepped on by the Hanwok. At that night, people were immediately shocked by the situation that occurred. There they were surprised because now the Wonsuk, who had a very large body, was lying in a very sad state. Jummo, who saw Hanwok win, immediately smiled happily, and he said that Hanwok was great. When Jummo was about to come to him there, Hanwok immediately held him back because he didn't want to be bothered by Jummo's behavior. It seems that Sangwok himself is currently scared, and he immediately looked away when he saw Hanwok, who was glancing at him. Sangwok looked away because he was afraid of the current situation. Hanwok himself there continues to stare sharply because he wants to tell if this Sangwok can't mess with him anymore. Suddenly, there the Chun Maung came towards Hanwok, and he immediately asked about the name of Hanwok, who was a soldier. The Hunu, who saw Chun Maung, immediately saluted, and there he said that he was Hanwok, who was a corporal from Company 1. Chun Maung returned the salute back to Hanwok, and he said that he was a high-ranking non-commissioned officer of the Black Tiger unit, and right now he wanted to tell him that Hanwok's fight was extraordinary. While giving a Black Tiger membership card there, Chun Maung immediately asked if Hanwok was interested in joining Ray's Special Operation Troops. Everyone who saw that was immediately surprised because they knew that Chun Maung was now the head of the Black Tiger unit. Their people thinks that the Black Tiger unit is the strongest unit in the place, and now Hanwok is being recruited into it. But Hanwok himself apologized there. He said that he was only a rank F, so maybe it was not worthy to be in the Black Tiger unit. Chun Maung Yang, hearing that, immediately said that rank is not important because the most important thing is to be a soldier like this Hanwok. Hanwok himself there immediately thought that he did not want to, because he knew that if he entered the unit, then he would get more pressure. While looking at the membership card there, Hanwok said that the military is sometimes very petty, so he didn't want to join. In the end, Chun Maung gave the card, and there he told Hanwok to think first before rejecting it. While saluting there, Hanwok also said if he would indeed do that, and he would tell if he was interested. Sangwok, who saw the current situation, immediately gritted his teeth, and his veins immediately came out because he felt very annoyed at Hanwok at this time. Sometime after that, now the scene shows the battalion commander's office. Kang Seok is seen in the office, who is now having coffee with Chun Maung. While enjoying his coffee there, Chun Maung said that the Black Tiger unit under his command is still short of personnel. Kang Seok, who heard that, instead smiled, and he said that it was a natural thing because now many guilds were recruiting new players even though only C rank. After saying this, the two of them suddenly stare at each other. Kang Seok finally smiled happily, and he said that Chun Maung's arrival must be because he wanted to meet a surgeon named Yang Chun. It is explained that Yang Chun is a very great surgeon, and he also has a strong warrior spirit in the military today. Chun Maung immediately said that it was true. He said that at first he really wanted to meet Surgeon Yang Chun, who was predicted to be very strong. While staring intently there, he asked if Yang Chun was on leave. But Kang Seok instead followed his sharp stare, and he did not answer this. Chun Maung finally didn't mind it, and he said that now he had also found a soldier who was quite interesting there. He remembered that the soldier he found interesting is a Hanwok, where this Hanwok has a mysterious power that is still not revealed at all. Kang Seok, who heard that, was immediately surprised because he did not expect Chun Maung to be interested in Hanwok. Chun Maung himself immediately smiled because he knew that this Hanwok was quite talented, and he had to recruit into the Black Tiger members. Kang Seok himself continues to think about the current situation, and he immediately thinks about what will happen in the future. The story now switches back a few moments after that. It looks like Hanwok is exhausted because he was chased by Junmo quite quickly. Junmo there continues to chase Hanwok while Kang Seok there continues to watch the two of them from a distance. Kang Seok is now on the phone with someone and he tells the person on the phone to find out Hanwok's background before entering the military. Hanwok himself currently looks exhausted because it turns out that he has been chased by Junmo, who also wants to be strong like Hanwok. Junmo there said that he wanted to be strong like Hanwok, but Hanwok replied that he was also weak and even now his running was pathetic. He is now indeed very tired because it turns out that the body he has now is very weak due to never having practiced at all. Kang Seok himself continues to watch Hyunu while intending to carry out a plan on Hanwok that he is watching. With a creepy aura there, Kang Seok also tells if the situation that will happen in the future is not his fault. Kang Seok there smiled horribly, and he said that this Hanwok was so attractive that it made the greed in him want to recruit Hanwok too. The city itself is now bustling without any incident. In the center of the city there was a child who was surprised when he was with his mother. The child left his mother because accidentally there he saw a monkey in that place. The boy looked for the monkey he had seen with his eyes. But it turned out that what the boy saw was not a monkey, but a terrible-tailed monster. The boy immediately shuddered in fear, and while trembling there he said that it was not a monkey. The monster itself was now gnashing its teeth, and it stared horribly at the child. It seemed that the monsters were very numerous because it turned out that they had just come out of a portal that appeared in a place. The child immediately screamed very loudly because of this. Then in another place there was Hanwok who also shouted because he was amazed at what he saw. Hanwok is currently at the battalion armory. It seems that he is currently with Seo Yuna, and their Yunha says that now Hanwok chooses the weapon he wants. Hanwo was there thinking that in his previous life, Yunha was very stubborn, and it was probably the same this time. Yunha now does continue to pay attention to Hanwok, because there he still does not believe and continues to underestimate Hanwok, who does a rank F. Yunha there looks upset, and he said that previously the goblins were attacked by just one person, so he couldn't believe that it was Hanwok. Youngwoo didn't care about that, and there he was taking the weapon he wanted. He also swung the weapon that he had gotten, so there Yunha was a little confused by this. Yunha there said that Youngwoo should choose correctly because what he saw now was that Youngwoo chose a useless weapon. Looks like the item is a weapon that can absorb water and emit fog. The weapon may look unattractive. But in the future that weapon can make someone get the title of sword, saying the original name of the sword itself is Cloud Master Rakan. Then in mythology the sword belongs to the gods of weather control who descended to earth. The sword may now look ordinary, but when its potential is unlocked it can unleash the power of lightning. While watching his sword there, Hanwok smiled happily, and he said that the power of the sword could make him finish the dungeon alone. Yunha there said that now Hanwok should immediately choose a better weapon, but Hanwok said if it doesn't matter because now he doesn't have time for that. While they were talking, the alarm went off loudly. The alarm went off at the military base, and there it told that there was an emergency where the gate to Taiwan had opened. Everyone at the military base began to move quickly, and they all immediately prepared with their equipment. Hanwok, who heard the alarm, continued to stare sharply. Yunha, who saw it, was a little confused, and she thought that this Hayuno looked like someone who already knew it would happen. The place where the monsters appeared is now heavily guarded by hunters. It seems that there are many hunters moving around, and now they will try to solve the problem. The soldiers who saw the hunter were immediately amazed because it turned out that the hunter was from a guild called Changhua. The soldiers said that the Changhua Guild's armor and weapons were so luxurious that it was certain that they were very strong. They smiled and said that when their military service was over, they wanted to join the Changhua Guild. On the other hand, Hanwok was seen shouting loudly, and he was briefing the group. Hanwok gave a stern briefing to his group there. He explained, if now they will do a real battle, so they must be serious if they don't want to be torn apart on monsters. When he saw that, some of the soldiers laughed. There they said that Yumwo's exile group only served as helpers. Mentally, Jummo and the other Hanwok group immediately went down because they knew that they were just a group with low rank. Hanwok, who saw that, immediately paid attention to it. And their Hanwok also said that now they will fight kobold monsters, and these kobolds do not rarely come out of the battle zone, so they all have to be prepared. When he heard that, that person immediately belittled Hanwok, and he said that Hanwok was just trash, so he didn't need to act like that. Hanwok, who heard that, immediately stared sharply because there he felt annoyed with that person. In the end, that person left Hanwok while continuing to tease Hanwok and his group. Hanwok's troops are currently mentally down because they know that now they are just auxiliary troops. Hanwok, who saw that, immediately gritted his teeth. There he shouted loudly, and he said that his troops should not listen to the words of others. Hanwok said that they have experienced this many times, so it doesn't matter, and they should just focus on the current situation. Jummo and his troops immediately shouted loudly, and there they immediately agreed with the words of Hanwok. Hanwok there explained about the kobold monsters they would fight, and he said that the kobolds had small bodies, so they had to close the waterways so that the kobolds would not enter through there. He told them to close the waterway even though the kobolds might still be able to emerge from the closed waterway. When Jummo was about to leave to carry out Hanwok's order, Hanwok suddenly called him. While the other squad members are currently talking about Hanwok, and they say that Hanwok is currently looking very sensitive. Hanwok himself is currently paying attention to Jummo, who is in front of him. Hanwok looks at Jummo sadly, and he seems afraid of losing Jummo, who is now in front of him. Jummo, who saw that, was immediately confused, and he asked about why Hanwok was looking at him like that. When Hanwok was about to answer, suddenly there he was hit by an attack, so he couldn't say anything. The attack hit Hanwok right in the neck, so Hanwok was shocked by it. Hanwok began to fall because even the attack contained poison that made him unable to move at all. Not only that, it seems that now there is also toxic smoke coming out of the waterways in that place. The toxic fumes are coming out from various places. The soldiers who were exposed to the toxic fumes could not do much, and most of them fell down immediately because of this. Some people who had used poison masks survived, and they tried to move in the midst of the poisonous gas that appeared. But it turns out that their suffering is not enough to get there. It seems that now they are also attacked by kobolds, so that most of them are now being eaten alive. Hanwok, who saw that, could not move at all because he was currently exposed to poison that hit his body. When Hanwok tried to remove the poison needle from his body, he was suddenly surprised by the arrival of the kobold monster. Hanwok saw the arrival of the same kobold monster, and now the monster stared directly at Hanwok. Hanwok's eyes widened when he saw the monster. Also smiled happily, and he immediately pulled out a weapon to attack Hanwok, who could not move anymore. The monster quickly pointed its knife at Jummo and intended to gouge out his eye. But suddenly the monster was hit by a blow, so that the monster only destroyed Hanwok's eyeball. Next to Hanwok's eye, there was immediately destroyed, while it was seen that he was saved by Jummo by sacrificing his body. When the monster started to rise, Jummo himself saved Hanwok. The monster was annoyed, and there he immediately prepared with his weapons to attack Jummo and also Hanwok. Hanwok immediately said that now Jummo would run away and leave him in that place alone. Jummo, who heard that, did not want to run away, and there he immediately tried to give a gas mask so that Hanwok could survive. But suddenly there Jummo's head floated, and even his head began to separate from the body he had. Hanwok, who saw that, immediately shouted loudly, and he said that the current situation should not happen. But it seems that Jummo is still alive, and that the incident was something that happened in Hanwok's previous life. Hanwok currently keeps an eye on Jummo. He thinks that Jummo used to be very meritorious for saving him from the kobold shaman attack. Hyuno's own troops are currently saying that now they have completed their respective tasks. Because all the tasks have been completed, their Hanwok immediately called Jummo. Jummo, who heard that, immediately shouted, and he said that he was ready to follow the directions of Hanwok. Hanwok, who already knew that monsters would come to their place, immediately said that later Junmo and the others would leave the place. Junmo, who heard of that, was immediately surprised, and while feeling shocked there, he said that this action meant that they would commit armed desertion. It was explained that armed desertion means that a soldier is fleeing from battle, and they will be sentenced to a minimum of 5 years in prison. Hanwook immediately said that it wasn't desertion of arms, but part of the plan he was going to execute. The soldiers themselves are now geared up and ready to attack the kobold base. Inside the kobold's base, things were very quiet. Then suddenly the soldiers entered while carrying their respective equipment. They began to do the formation that had to be done. At the front there are many people defending, while at the back there are already people preparing with their magic circles. The kobolds themselves are very numerous, and now these kobolds are besieging the soldiers who had entered their territory. Their all kobold monsters immediately shouted loudly because they were angry because their base area had been entered by humans. They all immediately moved quickly, and they immediately ran towards the soldiers so they could attack them. The soldiers themselves were now prepared to defend, while one of the kobolds there was about to attack while jumping. The kobold immediately shouted loudly, and with the weapons he had, he immediately prepared to attack the soldiers. But suddenly, there the kobolds were immediately burned because they were hit by fire from the soldiers who were defending. The soldiers held a defensive formation to attack so that the kobolds could not approach carelessly. Elsewhere, Hanwook was shouting loudly, and he kept ordering his subordinates to only do their job. Hanwook's subordinates carry out all of their tasks, and they do so quite perfectly. While Hanwook was doing his job, suddenly there was the orange hull coming. When he saw that person, Hanwook immediately saluted, and he said that now he was doing his job as directed. The orange hair who saw that immediately teased Hanwook, and he said that Hanwook was really trash for doing useless things. It seems that the place itself is now guarded by a famously strong guild. The orange hair immediately said that they had been helped by the famously strong Chongwu guild, so Hanwook shouldn't have to do trivial tasks. While watching Hanwook, there the orange hair also told Hanwook and his subordinates to take his team's potions. Hanwook, who heard that, immediately stared sharply, and he said that the duty of him and his subordinates was to do the work as directed by the deputy commander. He there immediately shouted loudly at him, and he said that everything must be done correctly. The orange-haired man who heard that was immediately confused. He continued to pay attention to the surroundings because he was embarrassed by his current situation. He immediately gritted his teeth. And he also said that it seems like this Hanwook became big-headed because he was noticed by Kang Seok, who is the head of the battalion. Because he felt underestimated there, the orange hair was furious, and he said that this Hanwook only had one experience, but he seemed to be very arrogant. When the orange hair was angry, suddenly someone came there while trying to separate them. The person was a woman named Suna, and there she immediately asked about what really happened. When he saw that person, orange hair was not angry anymore, and the voice he released slowly became very low. Hanwook, who saw that, immediately smiled. He thought that this Suna was the weakness of the orange hair, who was now angry. In the end, orange hair became familiar with Hanwook, and he said that now he was telling Hanwook about the war situation. Orange hair's face began to turn red, and he tried to laugh freely. Suna was there, immediately shouted it, and he also said that now he wanted to tell if Hanwook was ordered to face Kang Seok, who was the main commander. Hanwook, who heard that, was immediately confused there. He was confused about why he was told to face Kang Seok. Elsewhere, there are currently several people who are paying attention to the situation. The person is Yunha and his subordinates, and Yunha is currently watching something with the binoculars he uses. It seems that what Yunha is paying attention to is Hanwook and Suna. Yunwo and Suna are currently chatting, and Suna told Yunwo to hurry up and meet Kang Seok. Suna there smiled at Yunwo, and he said that Yunwo should leave all the tasks there to him. Yunwo immediately turned his face away. Then, with a little panic there, he said that now he didn't have much time anymore. Yunha himself is currently watching Hanwook, and he wants to know what will happen in the future. Yunha said that now the situation is quite incomprehensible, because at this time he was suddenly told to pay attention to where Hanwook was. The story changes back to the temporary commander's post for the Italian soldiers. It seems that there is already Kang Seok who is staring sharply. And even in that place, there was also Chun Mom, who noticed the arrival of Hanwok. The newly arrived Hanwok immediately saluted them. And while staring intently there, Hanwok was confused about why now there was Chun Mom who also came to the place. Kang Seok immediately put on a serious face, and there he said that now he gave the task for Hanwok to become the commander of the attacking troops. Hanwok immediately panicked there. He was confused about why Kang Seok was like that, even though in his previous life, Kang Seok didn't care about him. Hanwok there thinks that now he has no more time, so he must stick to his stance. While watching Kang Seok over there, Hanwok immediately shouted loudly. And with his loud voice there, he said that now he wanted to carry out the mission together with his colleagues who were in that place. Kang Seok immediately said that what he said earlier was an order, so Hanwok had to obey him. Hanwok, who heard that, immediately bit his lip, and there he held back the annoyance inside him. Then suddenly there was a report that came in where now the kobolds were starting to come out of their nests. Hanwok, who heard the report, was immediately frightened, and he said that if he did not immediately go to his colleagues, then they would all be immediately destroyed. In the end there, Humano immediately tried to explain something so that Kang Seok would listen to his request. Kang Seok continued to watch Hanwok with his sharp gaze, while Hanwok continues to explain everything so that Kang Seok will let him be with his fellow troops. Elsewhere, Yuna is still watching the situation with her binoculars. There Yuna also saw someone who was running fast. When he saw that person, Yuna was immediately confused, and there he was a little unclear about the person's behavior. It turns out that the one who was running was Hanwok. There he ran quickly because he knew what would happen. Hanwok shouted loudly, and he tried to call all the members of the troops he led. Hanwok told them to watch out for a poisonous gas because it could be very dangerous for all of them. Suddenly, the whole place rumbled violently. The sensor that was installed immediately lit up. The soldiers were startled, and there they were afraid because now there were signs of the monster's attack. The woman who was favored by the orange hair was now also shocked because she knew that the situation could become very dangerous. Poisonous gas began to come out of the waterways of the place. Yunho was now immediately stuck in place, because there the poisonous smoke from the kobolds began to spread everywhere and caused the view to be quite obstructed. Hanwok was immediately annoyed, and he said that the events were now faster than what he had remembered before.